I'm going to zoom out for now unless we need it. Alright. So, object destructuring. Let's just play around with a few objects and see what we can learn today, basically. So, object destructuring, is it a new feature, an old feature? Have you used it yet?
Yeah, we did. We have used it.
You have used it a little bit, yeah? Is it fairly new in the language? 2015, right? Like a lot of these modern features that we call modern features, big additions to the languages, into the JavaScript language came in 2015, so that is what we are looking at today. Object destructuring was one of those additions. As well as object destructuring, we have array destructuring. So I want to focus on object destructuring, and we might just do a little bit of array destructuring as well if we get time at the end. All right. Yeah. So where have you used it currently? Someone said they'd used it before. Object destructuring in components. So you've often been getting props passed into your component, and you've destructured those props. Yeah. How did you destructure them? Yeah, so usually the syntax is just to do something like that. And then inside we have to actually name the properties that belong to the object, yeah? So in our case, I've got this player object just taken from the platform, right? You might remember the tennis question. And it's got a first name property, a report property, and the report itself is an object, yeah? The value of the report key is an object itself. So we've actually got a nested object here as well. We'll look at how we can deal with those situations in a second. So if I went to destructure that, what values would I use? Destructure my player into certain things. Yeah, first name is one of them. And what's that? And report. Yep. Cool. So then, if I've destructured an object, it means I don't have to do player.firstname and stuff like that anymore. I can instead just write first name. So this was especially useful in React when we were dealing with state. It stopped us writing this.state all the time or this.props all the time in class-based components. So it's just setting up a shorthand, right, to access the value inside of that object property. So if I return first name now, what should I get? What should be the result of returning first name? Roger. Yeah, Roger. And if I return report, what will be the value of report? An object containing all of this stuff. Yeah, good. Let's just double check that. Australian Open, French Open, blah, blah, blah. Let's say for whatever reason, I just wanted to get Wimbledon wins or something like that, right? So I might be interested in first name. Let's say I'm still interested in the first name, but I'm not interested in the Australian Open, the French Open, or the US Open. I just want to access Wimbledon. Yeah? So at the moment, if I was to return a string and say, you can tell me, right? So I want to say, Roger has won number Wimbledon championships. So how would I return that string? So I've done a backtick, yep. So what comes next? So I want to say, Roger has won.
$sign.
Yeah, $sign. Let me find it, sorry.
Curly braces.
Yeah, curly braces. Inside goes
First name.
absolutely. So Roger has won. Then we want our number. And then let's just say, these facts might not be right, by the way, in case anyone messages me and says, Roger's won far more than that. I don't know, right? Let's just take it as an example and a fictional number. Championships, right? What, at the moment, can I put in there to get my number 8? Dollar curly braces, what goes inside?
Report.
Yeah, report. Wimbledon. Absolutely. report.Wimbledon. Yeah, I think that's going to be fine. Let's test that. The syntax highlighting has gone a little bit weird in terms of its colours, but I think we should be alright. I'm just getting back. Doesn't really make sense, does it? Return string. Let me just double check it's not DevTools again being weird. Okay, destructuring practice is not defined. Got it. Of course it's not because I changed the name. So that was my fault. And now we say Roger has won 8 Wimbledon championships. Cool. So that works with one level of destructuring. But let's say I don't want to write report.Wimbledon. I just want to write Wimbledon. How would I just access, or how would I destructure up here in my parameter list to just have a variable called Wimbledon, not report.Wimbledon? Does anyone know? Report.firstName. So you're saying do something like that. Is that your suggestion, Kieran? Just so I'm clear. Is that what you meant?
No, sorry,
Unexpected token dot. So it doesn't let us access things like that. Yeah. Yeah, you do have another curly braces, so you have to use that sort of syntax. Report, we're also going to destructure into its values. Now, I'm curious whether I can just write Wimbledon and it will find the correct one, or whether we have to list them each in order. So let's try. And it works. Because objects are not ordered generally in JavaScript. Yeah, so any property we use, it should be able to find it within that object. So you've got first name just on its own at the top level. Report, you want to destructure further into some nested values. Yeah. And we can do that as many times as we want. Let's say that Wimbledon itself was an object and it had singles and doubles in it, or even doubles. Maybe singles he's won 8, and I don't know, he doesn't play much doubles, right? Or maybe he even doesn't play doubles at all. But let's just say he's won 2 doubles for the sake of the argument. So, if we just wanted to access the singles championships that he's won, one more curly bracket where? Below? Right at the end? There? Where's the curly brackets going? After Wimbledon. Yeah. And then put singles inside. Doesn't like that. What have we missed?
Do we have to put the 2 dots as well?
Yes, we need the colon, right? We're saying we're destructuring this further. So Wimbledon destructured into singles.
Put single directly.
And then we'll put singles in there, yeah. So it's not very easy to read, but if you do it in steps, it's quite logical at least, right? Roger has won 8 Wimbledon singles championships. Fantastic. And we could do obviously the same thing for doubles. He's won 2 Wimbledon doubles championships. Yeah? So you might think at the moment, well, that example wasn't much better than just writing Wimbledon.doubles and Wimbledon.singles and all that sort of stuff. But it's very useful if you're constantly using a variable in your code, right? Maybe we use first name, I don't know, like 5 times inside this function. Yeah, or even we use Wimbledon 5 times inside this function. We don't want to have to write player.report.wimbledon each time. Yeah, it's just saving us a little bit of it's making our code a little bit cleaner in the main function body. Yeah. So I really like it for props in React, and I like the way Destructuring makes our code and our components just a bit more readable, rather than having all that repetition there of this dot state and this dot props and various things like that. Yeah. Any questions on what we've done so far? No? Can you set some default values? Let's say he hasn't actually won any doubles, so we haven't listed doubles in there, but we still want this function to work. So at the moment, if I tried it, we're going to get Roger has won undefined Wimbledon doubles championships. So we haven't spoke about using default values in JavaScript yet, but I just want to show you that you can do it, even in object destructuring. Default values, we generally just put next to the variable name and then equals, like that, yeah? And what that will do, if no first name exists, then it will put one in. So if we've got a John Doe, if we don't know who they are, now rather than saying Roger, hold on, let me show you with right? So if we created this variable called first name, is there a first name inside of the player variable? No. So if we run that, undefined, yeah? First name is not defined. If a variable is ever undefined, we're allowed to set default values for them. And we can do that just by putting in the list of parameters up here, the variable name equals to whatever we want the default to be. And this will only get used if first name is undefined. If it is defined, that's great, we'll use that value. If it's undefined, it's going to take John Doe. So let's see that in action now. It now says John Doe has won undefined Wimbledon doubles championships. Yeah. And if I put it back to Roger, it won't use John Doe. It will still use Roger. Right? Oh no, that's my default Roger. Yeah. Sorry. Of course it will use Roger. So if I put back in my object, thank you guys. Yeah. First name. Colon, different syntax, right? Because we're now in an object. Oh, what's happening with the indentation? So if I now do that, my deafening Ed, sorry Ed. Yep. So now even if we have our John Doe up here, it will ignore that value because first name has previously been defined elsewhere. It still selects Roger.
The only time the default will be used is when first name is not there.
Yep. If first name is not defined and you want to have just a default value in case the object doesn't have it itself, then it could be quite useful to set a default value. Say again, Ahmed?
Roger out. First name, just the semicolon, no Roger. Just leave Roger. Leave the quotes.
Leave the empty string? Yeah. So what do we think we're going to get now?
Space as well.
What? You want a space as well?
No.
What?
You can leave space or anything, doesn't it?
Okay. So you Jack, think you're going to get John Doe?
No, you get space.
Get a space or even an empty string, right? So now we're just going to get empty string as one, yeah? Because this is still a value. It's not undefined, it's a value. I know it's a falsy value, which we learnt the other day, but the defaults only work if we have an undefined.
What if you remove the strings?
If we do what?
If you remove the strings,
Remove.
just leave first name there with no value.
Well, then that's not a valid object, is it? We need key value pairs in an object, so that's not even going to compile. Yeah, that's a syntax error. So anyway, all of that talk was just to set you up for, can I put a default value on doubles? Let's say the default value is 0. How would I do that? So Seb's pointing to this doubles over here, and we could put an equals 0. Now, rather than saying undefined Wimbledon Championships, it says Roger has won 0 Wimbledon Doubles Championships.
Until he won one. Until he wins one.
Until he wins one, which I'm sure he could do when he no longer plays the singles too well, which would be never. But yeah. So we looked at quite a few different things, right? We've looked at basic object destructuring. We've looked at setting default values inside of our objects. We've looked at nested destructuring, that sort of format. Was there one more thing I wanted to show you? Object destructuring? Can't remember now. Let's say no. And shall we try and get it to work for arrays as well? Yeah? So now we're going to change this not to a nested object, but a nested array. Give me a few seconds. So I'm going to get rid of all of my keys, and I'm just going to have these values, which is going to be slightly confusing, but can anyone remember what order we had? We had, what one have I just deleted? Australian, right? So I'll put this down here. So we've got Oz, and then we've got French, then Wimbledon. Wimbledon's the only one that doesn't have its country in the title, right? We've got Australian, French, US. Wimbledon's just Wimbledon. Yeah. Egotistical British, eh? So this was an array as well, wasn't it? This was an array of our report. And then this is an array of our singles and doubles. Let's give him 2 again. And then the US Open belongs outside to the report, and then we close it off for the whole thing. Alright. Right, so now I've just got an array of values. How do I destructure that array so I can use these same variable names? You know, of course I could put in my code, couldn't I? I could put in, well, let's just say that whole thing was player, right? We passed the player array up. Of course I could do something like that to get Roger's name. Let's just test this code's working first. I know encore if doubles is not defined. Yeah, okay, of course, doubles is not defined. For now, just to check everything else is working, I'll put my default in there. Doubles is not defined. Oh yeah, because so I could have done that. Okay, let's ignore that for now. Now what? Is it going to say the same thing? Doubles is not defined. Have I got rid of all references to doubles? I'm pretty sure I have. What, here? On player? Where? What line? 3? Okay. Sure, I can do that. Still going to complain that doubles is not defined. I don't get where doubles is coming from, to be honest. What? Yeah, but there's no reference. Is there at all to doubles? Where's doubles? Huh?
You don't need to reference, it's just like.
Yeah, I know, it's just text, so why is it complaining?
Oh,
Okay, right, it works, yeah. DevTools was just complaining for some reason. Alright, so I could do that, right, to access Roger. I could put player 0, but it's not very clear. I want to name each of these elements in the array. So you remember what we did with the object? We put little object syntax, and then we put inside something like first name, yeah, to assign the first name property to the first name variable. So we can do something similar for arrays. This time we use a square bracket syntax. And this should assign the first element in the array to the variable of first name. Someone's really desperate to get hold of someone. And that works.
So the only difference between object and array destructuring is the fact that you use obviously the correct sort of braces called like the square brackets. Or
Yeah, pretty much it's the same thing, right? But the only problem with the array is ordered. Yeah, so if I then wanted to access this number 8, I'm probably going to have to be a bit more inventive to access it than just calling it Wimbledon.
yeah.
Yeah, so array destruction is really useful if we want to name everything inside of the array, but otherwise we might be better off using an object, and then we can actually name things and access them via their key. So if I wanted to get this 8, what have I got to do? Yeah, so it's a bit confusing. So I think we had report next, right, which refers to this array, and then our next item, our final one, our 5, is that, no, that's inside the array as well. So we've only got 2, haven't we? We've got first name and report. So then, I know it doesn't make sense, but let me just return the report. Yeah, so we've got 61825, yeah, so that's managed to correctly get all of those values. Now, I've never used nested array destructuring, so we can experiment here. I'm guessing the syntax would be put a comma. Oh, but that would be the next element, wouldn't it? So do we, we use that, don't we, in object destructuring, but I doubt we can do the same thing. So let's just say first, and then, yeah, you see it doesn't like it. Let me do a quick, yeah, yeah, that would be the equivalent, wouldn't it? Without the colon. Yeah, what do you reckon? Doesn't like it. A legal property. as I say, I've never used it. I was just curious if you could. So can you do nested array destructuring? Can extract smaller fragments from arrays and objects. Destructuring. This is a little PDF that I've got for you and I will share afterwards. So it started as a Medium article. And I will definitely share it with you. Nested array destructuring. Here we go. So this apparently is the syntax. So it's just comma. Yeah, so it looks the same as the array essentially. Let's have a look in DevTools. So rather than it being report, we can just totally get rid of report. Yeah, we don't have to give it that identifier. So whenever we start a new array, that shows that it's nested. So we've got something like, first one was Oz, right? So we've got Oz, then we had French, and then next we've got a nested Wimbledon thing, so we can do singles and doubles.
But shouldn't that be inside the other one?
Good question. Could be, maybe. So you're saying I've shut it there, so that should be like that, shouldn't it? I think you're right, Seb. Good spot. I think you're right. And then the last bit is US. And how many times have I got to close? I've got to close once and twice. It's not complaining, which is a good start. Let's see what we've got. So we want to access first name. And then we want to say that they've won doubles. Hey, it works. So obviously without me doing it my terrible way, Seb, it would have confused it, I imagine. We would need one more closing somewhere, do we? Closed. And then I said, put that nested. So that's what I was going for, and I think that's of course completely wrong. Yep. Because Seb correctly identified that the singles and doubles is inside of our report array, which ends there. Nice. Good pair programming, Seb.
No work.
Yeah, so that's how you could do nested array destructuring as well. So the format looks very, very similar to the original array. We've got first name, corresponds to Roger, then a comma. It's a nested array, so we put just a comma in a square bracket, and then Australian Open, French Open, nested for Wimbledon, singles and doubles, and then the US at the end. All right. So that just makes it a little bit easier to read your code. Yeah, we're returning first name as won doubles championships as opposed to, let's say, player index 0 has won player index 1 with another index of 2 after it. Yeah, it's going to get really, really messy. So that's a nice little addition that doesn't make this bit more readable, but of course you set that up once, right, for your function, and it should be done. But it can make the inner part of your function or component a lot more readable. Any questions? This example, so you want a React example? Yeah, so we can jump over into the platform and we can see if we can find a good question. But I can't obviously test the React component in DevTools just like this. But yeah, let's have a quick go. I'll leave it open and Let's go for,
DevTools just works with JavaScript.
yeah. You can probably get an extension so that it can run React components. I haven't found one yet, but maybe one exists. Maybe one exists. But definitely just play around as much as you can, right? If you come across something that's a nested object or anything like that, then just play around with destructuring it and fully understand what that syntax is doing. Anyone know of any good object questions on the platform? Lists. It's usually an array, isn't it? But you got an array of objects. But list is just one. Yeah, list might work. So here we've got an array, and inside that array are a couple of objects. The list itself, let me zoom in slightly. The list itself is passed as a prop down here to the movies component. Yeah, so I think we do need to access list directly as well. But let's say we didn't. And then we can destructure it twice into title, year, and director. Yeah? Do you want to do class-based component or a functional-based one?
Class.
Oh, function wins. It was quicker. I can do both, right, if you really want to see it, but usually we just write that. Yeah, if we want access to our props object, usually we would just write that. And then if we wanted to access, I'm not going to answer the question, I'm just going to access the director, right, in this case. So we would have to return props dot list dot director. Yeah. So in this first case, that should no, we can't even do that, right? Because list is an array, so we'd have to do that. So access the first item in the list, and then access the director property on that list. So that should return Patty Jenkins. Is it even going to show me? No, it's because it's the test that's failing rather than the actual output. Can I do what, sorry?
Because it's expecting paragraphs.
Yeah, the test is failing. The function's going to be returning that, but the test is failing. So we might have to solve the question. Let's see if I've got a pre-prepared answer to save me writing it all out. It's probably quicker. Nope. Or if I can't find it right, we might have to I'll show you later, but if you've got a working React application, then that's a lot easier to do. Where is it going to be? Yeah, I'll take that. So ignoring the indentation, does this work? Cool. Yeah, so I've done at least one level of destructuring. Really not semantic, but define so what we did in this case is rather than using props, in which case we would have had to done props dot list, and then I've also destructured that, right? Yeah. So then you would have also had to map line number 6.
Yeah, because it's looking for P in the actual 2D.
I'll talk through line 6 in a second. Yeah, let me just put it back to how we'd have to done it with props. So each prop is a movie essentially, right? So usually you're used to seeing it like that. Yeah, we have a movie and we map each movie to something. So we're mapping it to a paragraph with some stuff inside and then closing the paragraph. And then every time we wanted to access something inside of the movie, we needed to do movie.title, movie.year, and then we'd have also had to do movie.director. Totally spelled that wrong. Director, like that, yeah? Have I messed it up or does it still work? Let's have a look. Yeah, I messed it up. Didn't return anything. Props.list.map. Each movie returns a paragraph. Okay, the movie.title. Movie.director. Don't need that anymore. Turns good. Still not working. Syntax error 6.8. Expected a comma. Okay, yeah. The rest is just elegance, right? So that's what we would have originally had to write. So I've used props, not too much, right? It's not too bad in this example, but movie is a bit annoying, right? I've had to write movie. So could I destructure the movie object? Movie just refers to any one of these. Yeah, they all seem to have similar properties. So how would I destructure movie? Put curly braces around it. What properties does movie have? Okay, so I could do title, year, and director. Then my key, I guess I could use my title as the key. Why title for us? What, you mean title dot title, or what do you mean? No, because we've destructured the movie, so now title refers to the actual value inside of title. Yeah? And then movie.title, well, we don't need the movie anymore because we've destructured it out. We don't need movie.year, we've destructured it out. And we don't need movie.director, we've destructured it out. Test have still made it work. I haven't, what have I done now? Syntax error, unknown, unexpected token. What was it on line 4? 4.33. Does it? Where's key? I'm just wondering whether it doesn't like this because they're 3 separate variables. Maybe I have to wrap them. Yeah, it's that, right? So because we've destructured it into separate variables, we need to contain them in as a group. Yeah, as we do with any arrow function if we've got multiple parameters. Okay, so we've managed to destructure movie. Can we destructure props as well, which was Kate's original example? Yes, we can. How would we do that?
Curly braces.
Curly braces.
Put list there.
And put.
And remove props and list.
And remove props.list, and it just becomes list. Yep. I think that should also work. We tend to space things out inside of the destructuring just to make it a little bit easier to read.
Is this destructuring very common in the tech world?
It's becoming more and more common, right? Because developers are lazy at the end of the day and they want to write as few lines as possible. Don't sacrifice readability and being able to work well in a team. So if this is just bonkers to a lot of people in the team, then slowly introduce it over time, right? So that people aren't getting confused and they can't read your main text.
The code also will run faster and make smaller lines of code, isn't it?
It won't necessarily run faster. It depends what's going on underneath the hood. Just because it's shorter doesn't mean it's faster code. Yeah, but yeah, I prefer it right at the moment, but it's still fairly new, you know, to a lot of people. So just be cautious with it. Now I was really lazy because I didn't even want to write title, year, and director again. So I actually aliased it, right, to T, Y, and D. Remember we did that? Yeah. So now, every time I write title, I just write T. Every time I write year, I just write Y. And every time I write director, I just write D. Now that's probably not very readable, right? But I was just playing around with this and seeing if I could get it to work. So the T is alias to title, which is destructured to the movie, yeah, which is part of the list, which is destructured to the props. So you see how it's all just linked together and it's chained together. And it should still work, hopefully. Yeah, confetti time. Usually, if I didn't need the list, I would destructure it up here, right? So we had, essentially I can take all of that and instead stick it up there. So then I've got access to 3 variables, T, Y, and D, which represent the title, year, and the director of my list. However, that doesn't quite work, in fact, though, because we've got an array. Could we combine array and object destructuring? I'm not even going to go there today, but I will play around with that myself, I think, and see whether I can combine them nicely. But of course, we need access to list. So this does not create a variable called list. If you destructure list further, we've only got 3 variables available to us. We've got T, Y, and D available to us. We have not got list available to us anymore because we've actually destructured it. So just be aware of that. If you go nesting too deep into things, you then can't access the thing one level up that you might need. Yeah, so only destructure as many levels. How to phrase that, but you get the idea, right? Just don't destructure list if you need to access that root object further on in your code. So that's why we don't destructure list any further, so that we can access it here. Does that at least partially answer your question, Kate? with a props example. Yeah, cool. Anything else, guys? No, it's meant to be a fairly short workshop, so more just give you a couple of examples, show that it's possible in JavaScript, and then you play around with destructuring yourself. I'll send you over the PDF. Do you want any of those snippets as well? There's not really much there, to be honest. It's just one object.
You send the snippets from Google Chrome to DevTools.
No, as far as I'm aware, there's no direct feature that you can just save a Google Chrome snippet as your own file, other than copying and pasting it into a text file. Yeah, I don't.
I wanted to ask you this last one, I forgot the time.
Yeah, yeah.
The one I asked.
Oh, that was the question you wanted to ask. Sorry. Yep. Got it. Cool. We will leave it there then. Thank you very much. I'll share the PDF about object destructuring for you, and it's a good read.